Florida State adds a surprise recruit to its 2026 class.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And on this bonus episode, we are here to bring you the information on Judah Daniels, the newest commitment for the 2026 Florida State class. 6'3", 265 out of Fort Myers High in Fort Myers, Florida. And it's a great background story. If you like the under the radar, out of nowhere, this is your guy. Judah Daniels is a kid that was playing offensive line in the spring. Offensive line. But if you notice, I said defensive lineman as a recruit. Florida State asked him to practice as a defensive lineman when they saw him. He comes to camp because he impressed. He ends up with an offer. This is a kid that was really on nobody's radar for the most part. USF offered, FSU, he's got a few. But he wasn't really considered that guy, and it surprises me. I've seen that program before. I've seen him at the Down and Dirty camp, and I've seen him play different games, high school football, and I've never seen anything like this where a guy has this much just upside as a lineman, especially linemen in Florida. They get more attention because there are fewer of them. But I watched his senior film, and again, he is just now transitioning to D-line. That is his full-time main thing to do. And while he's raw, you see why Florida State was interested. First step quickness matches that of what you expect at a defensive end spot, but he's over 260 pounds already. He's going to mature into a pure defensive tackle / nose guard. Depends on how big he gets, but one of the two spots. And he has an aggressive nature. He fits the defensive side of the ball. And here's the best part. I'm watching his film. He's got a few clips up from 3-4 different games early this season at Fort Myers High on huddle. And he kept showing the ability to beat the guys off the snap. Great sign. But the most important play that I watched for Judah Daniels was the following. He beats the guy off the snap, and the team they were playing, not very good up front, that kept getting beat. Everybody was getting penetration. Screen pass. That's how you beat penetration. Well, he puts his foot in the ground and immediately goes laterally. Again, this is a 260-plus pound young man. He hunts down the running back and makes a play near the line of scrimmage. This kind of athlete with that kind of motivation and also the natural football instincts, that is a steal. Florida State, just like everybody else, is always looking for more defensive linemen. That's not a newsflash. But to find one this physically gifted that really very few teams knew about, that's the bigger news to me. I'm surprised because Fort Myers High gets a lot of people that go through there. They have recruits. Why he ended up being a guy that was so lightly recruited and why he was playing offensive line prior, I don't know. But I really like him as a prospect. I want to talk about a couple of other players they've got just to put things in perspective. Florida State has a pretty good D-line depth chart. It's a combination of high school kids and a combination of players from the transfer portal, a JUCO kid. They've done a good job. But the best way to build your program, and Terrence Pot Roast Knighton is a very good D-line coach. The best way to build your program at any spot, high school. And when you get the defensive tackles, that's the hardest spot to recruit in terms of numbers. And here's what FSU has in the current 26 class in general. And then we'll go into what's next for FSU after the break. But Ernest Rankins is the top guy in the class. For the record, Auburn's still coming after him and several other schools. That's an interesting situation. Florida State's going to have to fend off some other programs. But he plays at Cedar Grove. It's on the edge of Atlanta. It's a very well-known program. They won state titles. Really good football program. However, you can't teach the length. It's not that he's just good. I've stood next to him. Conservatively, that kid's 6'5". Like some of the services have him like 6'4". There's no way. If I had to guess, he's 6'6". 280-ish, whatever. He's kind of a late bloomer in terms of filling out. That's a rare guy you can play as a strong side end in a three-man line. You can play him at nose guard. Not saying he's Darrell Jackson, but that frame is in the same realm. You find guys like that, that can be your anchor. Definitely. Whitley Cadeau. This is a young man that plays at Booker T. Washington in Atlanta. I went and watched some of his film this morning. Look, he's not like a complete finished product, but he's 300 pounds, give or take. But his first step quickness and his patience with his moves are a little better than I anticipated. Junior to senior year, he's gotten better, definitely. Another guy you could play nose guard or defensive tackle. They could do a lot of different things in a 3 or 4-man front with him. And then on top of that, they got Tico Crittenden, another Atlanta area kid at Lithonia High School. He's pretty good size too. He's 6'3", 285. Maybe he's your strong side end. Maybe he's a 3 technique. Bottom line, all of these guys have the size to play in a 3-man line. To get that group, you would be ecstatic. You really would. But then you add Judah Daniels, a kid that has the ability to end up being in any one of those spots. He's still filling out his frame. He's not as physically mature yet. You can see by just watching him move, he's an athlete. He may be the best athlete of the group. It's certainly possible, but he's not as thick yet. I think he's going to play at 280, 285 and be a strong side end in a 3-man line, like play a 4-eye or maybe a 5-tech in a 4-man line, whatever the case may be. And if he gets big enough and he's comfortable enough, because he likes to mix it up, maybe he's your 3-tech swing guy between 5 and 3, whatever. They've got 4 different guys that in some capacity in this class that can play inside. That is the rarest of the rare. Is this Florida State class a top 5 class? No, it is not. But in terms of defensive linemen, in getting the big guys, they did a tremendous job of finding versatility and size and athleticism all at the defensive tackle position with a little movement for all of them. A couple of them could play nose. A couple of them could also play strong side end. This is the great blend. Hats off to everybody at Florida State. This is the kind of class you want to have all the time. And I'm sure Terrence Knight and really just the defensive staff for the Noles are excited about this. They really, really did a good job. Now, I do have something I need to talk about because there is one concern. We're going to talk about that after the break. But so far, Florida State's class is really, really good up front. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda, and they craft cars for those who do more than simply move. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And just as an example, all-wheel drive is standard on every crossover SUV. You can drive with confidence through any kind of weather condition. And like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. This show is also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money, where most people, they don't always really know what's going on with their accounts, whether it's their investments in terms of 401k, their properties, or anything else. If you don't have a clear picture, you can leave money on the table. And that's why Monarch Money is there for you. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or online. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, and you can link all your accounts in minutes and see the clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money. So whether you're just trying to get your 401k in order, whether you're trying to get everybody to understand what you're doing in your family, you can put everything under the Monarch Money app. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with Locked On College. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if it wins, you can get $300 in bonus money to use across the FanDuel app. And with the football season now here for college and the NFL, FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff every week. So if you want to bet on over-under for this week's game between the Bills and somebody else, or maybe it's the Dolphins, it's maybe Tampa Bay, whatever, halftime scores, player props, FanDuel has you covered. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app and use FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, bringing you all the latest Florida State football news and recruiting. And that's where I want to start off with the next part. I just brought up to the attention of 4, not 2, not 3, but 4 guys that can be really good players for Florida State along the interior of the defensive line. It's very rare to get that many. Very rare. But they still need to get defensive ends. And when I say defensive ends, let me be very, very clear. The pure weak side edge rusher that lines up in a 7 technique, and everybody in the entire stadium knows that he's just trying to beat the offensive tackle to the spot. The speed rusher that's 6'4", 215 to 225, that super duper fast, twitchy guy that Florida State honestly is famous for, they don't have that player in this class. So 2 points. Number 1, Florida State needs to get somebody in this class that fits it, and they're after some guys. We'll go into that more in another podcast later this week or early next week. But more importantly, even if it's just an athlete that you project there that's a linebacker, maybe it's somebody that's played running back. There have been guys like that, a big running back that you're going to transition. They've got to get somebody in every single class, especially with Tony White's defense, because it's going to work much better if they start getting more length and speed. There are guys that are still under 250. Like James Williams is probably a little too big for what I'm talking about. He's a little over 260 now, but a 6'4", 235, 240-pound guy that has a ton of length is exactly what they need. They don't have that guy right now on the defense, to be honest. They're playing linebackers at that spot, and it's working to a certain degree, but they haven't played somebody yet where they've been exposed at all, and it could happen. 6'4", 6'5", 235, in that range is what you're looking for. After, keywords here, after a few years in the weight room. You don't want them to come in that size because they're going to get too big probably. You need guys that can play under 250, that can cover in today's game. It's not like it used to be where you could play DNs weak side 250, 255 across the board. They got to cover some. Sometimes you got to drop. So I'd prefer them be a little smaller. And I think Florida State probably would too, based on what they've done this year. They need at least one guy some way, shape, or form in this class. Maybe it's Yaya Gad, I think that's his pronunciation. The kid from Tennessee, they're recruiting him. He's going to be on campus a couple of times. He could be that guy. He's maybe a little bigger than I'd like. Might be able to play it. If nothing else, he could be the strong side in. But again, they need a twitchy guy to come in this class. Secondarily, with Florida State's success this year on defense, I don't know which guys it's going to be. But in the class of 2027, 2. Not just good, but everybody and their brothers recruiting them, elite pass rushing specialist defensive end should be expected in that class. 100% that's on the Florida State recruiting staff in the back office, Norvell, Knighton, and everybody. And I'm sure they want the same thing. No doubt about it. Everybody in the country wants them elite pass rushing defensive ends. You've got to catch up to that at some point. They've hit the home run this year. They found the inside straight in different ways to do it, and that's fine. But if you're going to be a consistent program, you got to find some of those guys. And if one of them's a JUCO, that's fine too, whatever. But just hitting them out of the portal, using linebackers, etc., that's not necessarily the best way to do it every year. Florida State now that they're playing well, it's pretty easy to sell this defense. It's obviously good. Next year, they need 2 of these kind of guys that are elite. We'll see if they can get there. I think they can, by the way, but we'll see. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I am Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, happy to bring you the latest news. And again, Judah Daniels, I really like him as a prospect and his upsides to the Noles added to their class. And we'll probably see 1 or 2 more really important commitments. Do not be surprised. This is a parting shot here. If they get a couple more recruits, and they could be flips. Just going to leave it at that. Florida State is doing quite well on the field, and that's going to help them on the recruiting trail. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles.